What's going on, everybody? Alonzo here with GulfCoastSmoke.com, and on today's episode, we're making beef ribs with Coca Cola. It's always fun trying new experience, and today is nothing different. Let's get right into this cooking. Let me show you what to do. Before we get into the video, I want to give you guys a few seconds to smash the subscribe button, share this with a friend, like the video. I'm not very good at reminding you guys to do that, but if you could do that, if you guys like the content that you're getting here, make sure to do it. It's going to help the channel grow, and we're really hoping to get 10,000 subscribers before the end of the year. Today we're using our gateway drum, and what I've got here is a little bit of lump charcoal right on top of some old briquettes. I always like to try and use all of my charcoal, so if I have anything left over, I'm just going to use that for the next cook. So I'm lighting my starters here, and you'll notice that that is closest to the intake. So you can see the intakes down there, and I'll also get some shots on the outside, but I always light my charcoal closest to the intake because that right there is where I'm going to build my fire. If I want to use kind of two zones, I could put my meat on this side of the grate or vice versa, but that's why I start it like that every single time. To start this process, we're going to focus on our beef ribs. Today, I've got some nice choice finger ribs. These aren't crazy or anything in the marbling department, but they look really good, and they're going to be perfect for our backyard cook. Now, all I'm going to do on the back is I am going to score this membrane. And the reason I like to do this on these is just because I've noticed sometimes they'll kind of like curl up and they won't look that great. So I'm just going to score these. We'll do the same exact thing to both racks. If you guys don't want to score them, that's completely fine. It doesn't make a big flavor difference, but I have noticed in the presentation it looks a little bit better when I score them. So because we are doing a little bit of an experiment today, I'm going to keep everything else as typical as possible. So I'm going to start with a little bit of Worcestershire sauce on the back. Then from there, we're going to hit with a really light layer of black pepper. I've just been liking the way the black pepper adds a little bit of that coarseness there. Southern Belle does have the black pepper, but I do enjoy adding just a little bit more. After that, we're going to add our Southern Belle. That's going to bring that great beefy flavor, and overall, it's just a really good rub. You can pretty much use this on anything. Now we just want to repeat on the top side. So you'll notice that I'm not taking any of the fat up on top. I'm not taking any of the silver skin off. I've actually made these so many times, and to be 100% honest, I haven't noticed a difference when I do any trimming on top of these and when I completely leave them like they're right out of the package. So I'm just going to leave it like this. This is typically the way I would do it. Again, if you guys want to do a little bit of extra trimming, by all means, go ahead. This is your recipe. So now that we're getting close to 300 degrees on our smoker, we're going to start making adjustments to make sure that we can maintain that temperature the entire time. So what I do on the vents on my intake is I just put my pinky in, and I'll literally close it until it touches my pinky, and then I know that that's good for me to rock and roll at 300 for a very long time. If you guys don't like cooking at 300, if you want to cook lower at 250 or 275, just make the adjustments earlier. I would say around 15 or 20 degrees before your target temperature. Now keep in mind, these gateway drums are, I believe, made to cook around 300 degrees, so that's why I consistently do it, and I really like the results that come with it. So now that our drum is sitting right at 300 degrees, it's time to start that fun experiment that we talked about earlier. We're going to cook our beef ribs with some Coca Cola. Well, not really, but the other day I was scrolling through Facebook, and I saw somebody talking about how they open up cans of Coca Cola when they're smoking beef, when they're smoking brisket, beef ribs, and they say the flavor that comes from it is truly amazing. So I started thinking, man, I don't really know how that would taste, and I almost started to not believe it, but I said, why don't we turn it into a video? Why don't we make this an experiment, and we'll see how it turns out together. That's exactly why we wanted to make sure that we season our beef ribs the same that we always do, change nothing, and then we're going to be able to see if this Coca Cola brings any flavor. So what we're going to do now is just crack open a few cans of this Coca Cola and put them in this baking pan. We're not going to pour them in there. We want the cans to stay intact, and we're going to leave just the top open. We're going to see if that brings any of that beautiful flavor that they were talking about in that Facebook group, and I'm really hoping for some great results. Now we're going to throw in some chunks of hickory. I'm going to put one right over the fire, and then I'll put one right in the middle, one right in between. I want that smoke to start and just continuously be smoking throughout the cook. Now I'm going to put a grate right over the charcoal, and this is what our Coca Cola is going to sit right on top of. Now I'm going to place my Coca Cola right in the middle. Typically, I like to keep my liquid to one side or the other, but since this is a brand new experiment today, I'm just going to put it right in the middle to be safe. Last but not least, we're going to put our top grate on. This is exactly what our beef ribs are going to sit on. To start this cook, we're going to put our beef ribs a little bit away from that fire just so we can absorb some smoke and not cook these too fast. It's been right at an hour on our beef ribs, and now we want to take a look and kind of see what's going on in there. I have been rotating them every 30 minutes or so just to make sure that they're consistently staying moving. I like to use my drum like that every single time, but let's take a quick look at these. Let's see if we need to spritz them. So if you guys don't know what spritz is, it's just moisture that you're applying to the meat if it looks like it's dried out in any areas. And typically people say that spritz helps build bark as well. With us having the Coca-Colas in there, I'm not too sure that we're going to need this, but if we do need it today, we're just using plain water. Like I talked to you guys about earlier, we do not want to manipulate the flavors at all. We want to see if we can taste that Coca-Cola in the end. And if you look at these beef ribs, they're actually looking really good. So they do look like they could use a little bit of spritz right here. I mean, I'm seeing a little bit of dry spots. Doesn't look bad at all. So what I would say is, you know how kind of Coca-Cola has a little bit, I don't even want to say like that spicy bite, that little kick that you get right when you take a bite. It almost kind of smells like that. I don't even know how to explain it. It's not too crazy. There's not too much at all, but I can 100% smell that Coca-Cola in there. I'm really curious to see if I'm going to taste anything in the end, but what we're going to do for now is we're just going to keep rotating this every 30 minutes. We'll spritz as we need to, and we'll come back near the end of this cook just to make sure that everything's looking good. It's been right at 3 hours on our beef ribs, and they're looking like they're getting ready to be done. So all I've been doing is rotating them every 30 minutes or so. I haven't probed them, but I do want to look at them together with you guys. Let me show you how they look. Right off the bat, you could see all those beautiful bones. So there's been a lot of shrinkage here, but everything is looking really good. I'm going to pull out my Thermopop here and just going to feel it. Oh yeah, that feels really, really tender, really good. So we're about right at 200. Let's see how the larger, oh yeah, that's just going in just like butter. So we're right around 200 degrees on both of these. You guys can see that they're looking incredible. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these off and just let these rest for about an hour. So these aren't the hugest beef ribs. I don't think they need hours and hours to rest. And plus it's almost time for dinner. So I'm gonna take these out. We're going to let them rest, and then we're going to talk about if we could taste that Coca-Cola that we cooked these beef ribs with today, and I'm really hoping that the answer is yes. After a pretty straightforward and simple cook, these beef ribs are done. You can see that they look oh so amazing. I actually really love eating these beef ribs. I texted my wife this morning. I said, man, it's been a long time since we've had these. We used to eat them all the time. They really are very, very delicious. Let's get right into it. Let's take a bite. Did the Coca-Cola make any difference for the flavor on these beef ribs? So you guys can already see that the beef ribs look amazing, super juicy, perfect smoke ring. Bark is incredible. Oh, so tender. I want to say that I taste that Coke flavor. I taste a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of... Those are so tender, and they're so delicious. I want to say that I taste it. I want to say that I taste it. I want to say that I'm getting like a little bit of sweetness, maybe a little syrupy, but it's not overwhelming, and it's not bad, and it's actually kind of good. But again, I don't know if this is my head playing tricks on me. Give me just a second. I'm going to ask my wife to try this off camera, and I want to get some feedback from her, and I will share with you what she says, but I almost feel like I taste it, but it's very, very subtle. I'm not too sure. Maybe my mind is playing tricks on me. And after a quick intermission with my wife, we actually discussed it, and we decided that you can't taste anything at all. I did think that I was getting like a little bit of sweetness, but as I kept biting it, as I actually kind of put my tongue directly on the bark, I didn't really get anything at all. I got saltiness. I got that pepper from the pepper that we put on before we put Southern Belle. Now, Southern Belle does have a little bit of sugar in there, so if I was tasting any sweetness, that was probably my mind telling me that it was the cola because we put it in there. But realistically and unfortunately, I'm not tasting any cola on these at all. So that is just, I don't want to say disappointing, but that's just something that you can try different things. That doesn't always mean that it's going to work. Now, I'll tell you what though, these ribs are incredible. They're insane, to be honest. If you guys want to use something in your water pan, just know that it might not make a difference. If you guys have anything that will make a difference, drop it in the comments down below and I would be glad to try it out. As always, we really appreciate you guys tuning into this video. Thanks, and we'll see you on the next one.